We had a wonderful coffee clutch till all of you came. We got to know each other better.
Yeah, that was definitely nice, right?
So I stayed away from the computer and the news since the last class on Thursday morning. Anything going on?
Oh yeah, right, Harold. Sure.
Nothing interesting.
Boring.
Nothing that's true.
Can you believe where we were last week at this time?
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was the tax thing. The tax, $750 in taxes was the big deal.
That was Sunday morning. Last Monday morning. Yom Kippur. Yep. I know. Can you believe the tax thing? That was last Sunday morning.
Well, that went away pretty quick.
Then the debate.
Well, as Randy says over and over again, every day that COVID is the headlines is a good day for democracy.
Right.
Polls show most people don't care about the taxes. They don't care about white supremacy.
Right.
They don't care about all those other issues. They do care about COVID. So every day, and that's why he's freaking out, every day that COVID is the headline, for whatever terrible reason it is, it's good for America, which is a terrible thing to say, but that's what all of the deep polling shows.
Yes. So do you think his ride around in the motorcade?
Stupid.
As long as COVID is in the headlines, his numbers are good.
The ride was, let's expose more Secret Service people to COVID in order to create an illusion of strength.
Yep.
But I got a news.
As much as we panic that people aren't talking about the taxes, most people in America don't really care about that as much as they care about what's happening for COVID, including Republicans, including moderates, including independents.
As much as we could discuss this all morning.
Yes, here we go. It's time for Psalms.
All right.
In fact, we'll say that something else.
Is Cantor here?
I am here, yes.
Yay.
Oh, wow.
So this is something that I've just been working on over the last few days. I was really struck coming across this verse in Psalm 11 right after the debate on Tuesday. It kind of had it hit me in my kishkas. All of we know like despair is not a strategy, as Rabbi's fond of saying, and but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't acknowledge the negative feelings of fear and sadness that we experienced. So this song has kind of started for me to become a container for some of those feelings. It's for me to be able to really acknowledge them and honor them. So this is where I'm at with it right now. It's still very much in process. It's probably going to have another verse. Right now I'm going to repeat the first verse to give that effect.
Everybody please mute yourselves. Thanks.
Yes.
I'm sorry, my guitar's really out of tune right now. Hold on one second.
While he's tuning, I just want to point out, remember what I talked about last week, that Evan Hashtiyah, the foundation stone, this is the same root. Hashatot is the same root as Shtiyah for foundation stone. And so this is a very, very powerful verse.
Sorry, friends.
That's quite all right. And as I said, I think that this verse really functions as the fulcrum verse, the foundation verse of this psalm. So I'm thrilled that Cantor Nimi has chosen this to use in this piece. And how exciting to be a part of your actual creation.
Yael Bat Chava says, is this the same root as drinking?
Shtiyah. Oh, that's interesting. I've never made that connection. That is so interesting.
That'll do at least. Thank you all for being patient with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, of course.
What can we do when the world is a wilderness and no one can show us the way? When everything's shifting, the air filled with bitterness, does anyone know what to say? When even the very foundations are crumbling, a chasm between me and you. when even the righteous can't keep from stumbling. Does anyone know what to do? Ki hashatot yeharesu tzadik mapa'ah. Ki hashatot yeharesu tzadik mapa'ah, mapa'ah. What can we do when the world is a wilderness and no one can show us the way? When everything's shifting, the air filled with bitterness, does anyone know what to say? When even the very foundations are crumbling, a chasm between me and you. When even the righteous can't keep from stumbling, does anyone know what to do?
Wow. Wow, that's spectacular. Spectacular, and I think you express what so many of us are feeling. And to use that one verse in that beautiful way and then to write the song that expresses these feelings that all of us, I think, are feeling. So beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. All right, back to Psalm 11 and a couple of words of just class words. I think we're going to look at other translations today. Let's read through, let's read through the Hebrew once, and then we're going to look at Fisher and at Psalm songs today. A couple of things. This is a perfect, if you have not yet written a personal psalm, this is a perfect psalm to practice because it's short. And the way I encourage you, if you've never written, if you don't think you can write, if you have no idea what it would mean to do that, take this psalm and try and say exactly that exercise I've given before. How would you make each sentence make sense to you? If you were to read this and say, okay, if I were trying to explain what this would mean to me, what were the words you would use? Don't sit down and say, I am now going to write a poem. Some people can do that. Many people cannot. Don't think, I am now going to write a great piece of work. Don't think that. Just ask yourselves the question, how would I say this psalm in my own words? That's your assignment. Don't try and think about creating, the next Nobel Prize in literature. Just what words would you use? And I really encourage you, if you have not tried this yet, and you feel like this is impossible, try it. You don't even have to show it to us. You don't have to show it to anybody. I would love to see, of course, but really keep asking yourself the question. You don't get the pass of saying this means nothing to me. You have to force yourself to say, if I were to find some meaning, what would that meaning be? Do you know what I mean? Just push yourself as an exercise. It's really, some of you might remember some years ago in a Shabbat morning service, what I did when we came to the Psalms of Psuke de Zimra. I had people, it made the service last too long, so we couldn't keep doing it. And maybe it's an exercise to take a psalm and in a chavruta, to actually go through it line by line and just say it out loud. Look at it and say, okay, what does this mean to me? If this psalm were speaking to me, what were the words I would be used? And to go back and forth. Because part of what I'm trying to teach is that you could take what we're learning here and apply to any psalm. In the middle of Friday night services, you could take one of the psalms that we say and say, okay, now what does this mean? I don't have to accept it on the page. I have to say the important question God asks of us is, what does this psalm mean to you? What does this psalm mean to me? And studying it is fun because we get to say, okay, these are different possibilities. This means that means that. The psalmist is saying blah, blah, blah. But bottom line, as a religious exercise, the question is, if you were to put it in your own words, And your words matter because your soul matters, and words are an expression of your soul. So don't be intimidated. Don't start out by saying, I'm going to write a psalm. And by the way, the best writers in the world don't sit down to say, I'm going to write, what I put down on paper is going to be perfect. The best writers in the world edit a lot. Before you see what they put out, they often write down many, 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 many words that don't get public viewing. So I'm just trying to encourage folks, if you haven't already tried this is a good psalm because it's short. And sometimes some of the longer psalms can be intimidating. But I think you should do it with all the psalms. Have an exercise book. If you haven't already, buy yourself a psalms class notebook, so that you keep all of your thoughts in one place and you bring it out for every psalms class, or in the afternoon if you're writing something down. And keep a place where the different things you learn, you write. Maybe Randy Sarakoff says something during class that makes a light bulb go off. Jot it down. Anyway, I also want to point out another book, and I've pointed out a couple of books that I love, but I only encourage people to read this if you're the academic type or you enjoy dense. I've been trying to stay away from the dense work about Psalms because it can be very off-putting. But I know some of you like that kind of reading. And if you do, Nahum Sarna, who's one of the great writers of Jewish thinkers and analysts, wrote a book called Songs of the Heart. Let me see if I can. Songs of the Heart. And see, I love that beautiful picture. It's a famous of King David playing the, oh God, now I keep forgetting what we're calling this, lyre or lute or something like that.
Harp.
So that's a very famous, I love that image, by the way, of King David playing. And so this is an introduction to the Book of Psalms by Nahum Sarna. It is academic. It is pretty dense. But for those who enjoy that kind of reading, and he takes 9 Psalms that he analyzes in depth, including Psalms 1 and 8, which we've already studied. So for those who enjoy it, for those who don't enjoy it, forget it. It's not, but we'll keep track of that book for those who do enjoy that kind of reading. All right, Psalm 11.
Let me just mention, we have multimedia capabilities. We have had, most of our offerings have been in writing.
Correct,
Some have been
sorry.
beautiful visual arts. We've had someone who has danced a psalm with us. We've had people who've written songs. We've not yet had anyone do a video. We've not yet
Or
had anyone do
photography.
photography. So all of those media, all those creative outlets are available.
Absolutely. Thank you, Harry, for adding that. And we very much value that. The Psalms ultimately are deeply emotional. And I think some of you have really gotten those pieces. But Harold's absolutely right. Whatever form, whatever medium you feel expresses a reaction to a psalm, we would love that. Just love it and just encourage it. And some people are more comfortable with different things than others. And I know that for some people, words are intimidating, and the idea of putting words on paper is intimidating. I am hereby, what's the word? I am removing all stigma with writing for everybody here, okay? So, Yael, would you read this through in Hebrew? And maybe I'll read it through then in English, or maybe somebody else read it in English, line by line, and then we'll go to the translations now that we've studied this on the initial level. Who would like to read in English?
Sherry Dradfield.
Okay, and Yael, you'll read in Hebrew?
Sure.
Here? Great, thank you. So let's do line by line, and then we'll go right into some translations.
למנצח לדוד, באדוני חסיתי, איך תאמרו לנפשי, נודי הרחם ציפור.
For the leader of David, in the Lord I take refuge. How can you say to me, take to the hills like a bird?
כי הנה הרשעים ידרכון קשת, כוננו חיצם על יתר, לראות במו אופל לישרי לב.
For see, the wicked bend the bow. They set their arrow on the string to shoot from the shadows at the upright.
כי השתות יהרסון צדיק מה פעל.
When the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous man do?
אדוני בהיכל קודשו, אדוני בשמיים כסאו, עיניו יחזו, אף אפיו יבחנו בני אדם.
The Lord is in his holy palace. The Lord, his throne is in heaven. His eyes behold, his gaze searches mankind.
אדוני צדיק יבחן ורשע ואוהב חמאס, שנאה נפשו.
The Lord seeks out the righteous man, but loathes the wicked one who loves injustice.
ימטר על רשעים פחים, אש וגופרית ורוח זלעפות מנת כוסם.
He will rain down upon the wicked blazing coals and sulfur. A scorching wind shall be their lot.
כי צדיק אדוני צדקות אהב, ישר יחזו פנימו.
For the Lord is righteous. He loves righteous deeds. The upright shall behold his face.
Beautiful. Thank you. Harold, can we look at Fisher now?
Absolutely, Rabbi. Let me just pull him out here. Fisher. Okay. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, would somebody else like to read since it's in English? Do we have another volunteer?
Aaron Brody had her hand up first.
Okay.
Okay, I'll read. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Karen.
Okay. I have trusted you. How can you say to my soul, take flight like a mountain bird? Can't you see crookedness bending its bow, setting its arrow on the string to shoot in the dark at the upright heart? When the foundation crumbles, what is right? You are in your holy temple, reclining on your heavenly throne, yet your eye still sees us, your gaze still proves us. I know you prove the upright, but crookedness and violence, these your soul casts off. You hurl burning coals at them, fire and brimstone you rain down, and from their cup they drink the flaming, ripping wind. For you are where righteousness is. Rightness is your loving kindness. Your face glows with it.
Wow, quite an interesting
Contrast.
evolution from the original. Let's notice first the architecture. Again, Fisher's not as interested in making sure he's doing 7 verses for 7 verses. So that's typical of him. He's eliminated the superscription, Lamanatseach LeDavid. He doesn't feel the need to have that superscription in the way that when we see Levi or altar, they tend to do that. And you notice that in his rendering here, what else don't we see? We don't see any word for God in the third person. And the question always is, what is the you? I have trusted you. So remember, the first English was the first psalm, the literal translation of some kind. In Adonai, I have taken refuge. How do you say to my soul, flee to your mountain as a bird? All right, so let's open this up a little bit and hear how people respond to this. What do you see in Fisher's exploration of Psalm 11?
Okay, what we do is we raise hands in chat. Sherry Dratfield, did you raise your hand to say something?
Yes, I did. I just, in reading it for the class, it was so heavily male. I just kept wanting to change the words.
You mean the original one?
Yeah, so
yes.
I just want to note that Fisher doesn't do that.
Exactly. Fisher wants to move away from that kind of narrow God stuff. So this is kind of a relief, isn't it? It's like, oh my God, you don't have that obstacle. But that's why I also encourage you, when you encounter a psalm, you should feel as free as Fisher does to leave behind those things that are obstacles to getting to the meaning of it. And that's part of the reason of looking at these different explorations of a psalm, is to give you a sense of liberation and a sense of freedom to try things that make it. You have to approach each psalm with the understanding that that psalm has something to say to you, and the obstacles that exist there, you need to either overcome or outright eject or struggle with. And different people respond creatively differently to those three options. Yeah, so he's removed all references to God that are narrow. And of course, as we know, we don't know exactly what he means, Fisher, when he's saying, I have trusted you. Who is he speaking to? And in this case, he's speaking to the one who is saying, remember we talked about in the original, it's hard to tell who is saying the take flight. Who is the actual speaker? Is it and here Fisher's resolving that by saying, whatever power in his life right now, he's saying, how can I trusted you, and how can you say take flight? Can't you see, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, good. Other thoughts and reactions?
Stephen Raphael.
I had two thoughts. One is that reclining on your heavenly throne, it sounds like the most critical of God, even though he's not saying God. There's an attitude of, you see all these horrible things happening, but you don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
You're just sitting back on your throne watching it happen. And the second part that I noticed is that he says that God, even though he doesn't specifically say it's God, but he says that God has a soul, which I think is fascinating, because you, the person with the soul, is the one asking for help. But in this case, or for God to notice you. But in this case, he says, I don't remember the exact line. I think it's a little lower than
Sees your
right
soul
there.
cast off.
Yes, which I think is fascinating that he says, you know, you're just sitting back watching all these horrible things, and your soul just casts off the badness in the world. Like, what are you going to do about it?
Quite challenging. Yeah, beautiful.
They're just lining up at the mic here, Rabbi.
Great, good.
Paul
I know this
Falcon
would be, and this is very good.
Paul.
So I agree with you, Rabbi, about the first section, that it's God. He's complaining about to God. I'm going to say that God is saying, flee to like a mountain bird, get out from where you are. But in the 1, 2, 3, the fourth and fifth stanzas, he uses the word prove. Your gaze still proves us. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Because in the fifth one, the next one, I can say, I know you prove the upright. So I could say, well, I know you approve. But I don't know that that's what that really means. What does prove mean all by itself? Does somebody know?
And what is he trying to say by that?
Yeah.
Good. Good points.
Sarah Siegel.
Yeah, if you could scroll up just a little, please, Harold. Excuse me, that how can you say to my soul, take flight like a mountain bird, is so different from the other one, where it's basically I'm supposed to fly to the mountains like a bird. So in other words, like the mountains are supposed to be a refuge for me. This one is more like, how can you expect me to just be able to be free as a mountain bird? It's different. It's much different in tone to me. The other thing that struck me was down at the cup part, and then, and then the can't you see is you said, Rabbi Kleinbaum, that he's much more challenging in here. He's like pushing God instead of the plaintive, please help me tone of the other. This is, what's wrong with you? All right. And as Stephen said about the reclining, that struck me too. But then down below the cup part, I'm so thrilled that he did use the word cup in here, because everyone neglected the cup. And I found that like such a scary, I said it in the last chat, the idea of having a drink fire and brimstone. Wow.
Yeah.
It struck me.
And actually, it's interesting now that Yael also reminded us that the Hebrew word for drink is actually that same. I'm going to have to look that up. I've never made those connections. There are some weird words that have the same root. That lishtot, to drink, is the same root as shtia, or a foundation. Very interesting. So here they are, the drinking, the cup, just very interesting.
Rabbi?
Wait.
Oh, Harold's calling on people.
Oh,
Ben?
well, it has to do with Lishtot, but okay.
Hold on to it.
Put it in chat. Lower Ben's chat friend.
I'm struck by how much closer to the spirit of the original psalm this is relative to all the previous ones that Fisher wrote. It's more remote and Zen-like. And this one is very, very close to the original in the spirit of it.
I agree. There's a lot of anger here. Don't you feel there's anger? There's challenging. There's when the foundation crumbles, what is right? Very, very powerful.
Sarah Sloan.
I'm struck in the fourth stanza, you are in your holy temple. The idea of God, however you define God, cooped up in a building when so much of the rest of the psalm is about being in nature, about taking flight like a mountain bird.
That's a super strong contrast. That's a good point. Yep.
Linda Watskin. Linda, if you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I want to extend the interpretation of the you when he says, can you see? In the first verse, of course, you have the you is referring probably to God. In the second verse, the you can be extended, so the you becomes not only God, but you, the you who is out there. It's an invitation to the reader and it creates a kind of intimacy so that you're drawn in at that point, which I thought was a very interesting way to do it.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Shep.
I just thought it was interesting in the other one, it's referred to the wicked bend the bow, and Fisher makes it not a human being. It says wickedness bending the bow. It's like no longer a human necessarily. And also I wonder if he's referring to God, because traditionally in English we capitalize the Y in you, and he doesn't do that unless it starts the word.
It's down a little bit. Hold on.
You know?
Yes.
Thank you. Jeffrey Weiss.
Okay. Okay, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, well, the first thing, given what's been happening this week, so I'm looking at this thing very differently. Like, on the line to take flight like the mountain bird, I kept thinking about the Von Trapps when they left fleeing the Nazis from Austria over the mountain. I was thinking of that. And the other dilemma I'm getting from this is what he's talking about, the evil should we stay or should we leave? That's what it's coming through my mind, like, should we stay and fight, or if we have the opportunity to flee the evil? So that dilemma is really resonating with me with this.
Yep.
Wow. Joan Friedman.
Well, I'm glad I get to speak right after Jeffrey, because I was thinking in some of the same lines as he was, where it seems like, am I supposed to just fly off and leave? You know, is that safe for me? Is that the right thing to do with leaving everyone behind? I think the thing about proving the upright is about testing, and that there's some very Bereshit references here, you know, for all the ways that Abraham got tested and the fire and brimstone. It's like, is this like Sodom and Gomorrah, where everybody's supposed to just leave? You know? And
big questions, and he doesn't provide simple answers to it.
Yeah, and it's a lot what we have right now. You know, there are all these perils.
Yeah.
And some people can hide away more than others, but there's still this huge problem. And what do you do?
So it's interesting. I'll go keep going, but it's interesting. Nobody's noticing or commenting on so far the last verse he puts in here, which Ira, I hope you noticed also. It's for the contrast between. I think he does a very powerful job of describing all the things that are happening. That where the feels like the world is on fire, And then he does end with this verse at the end, for you are where rightness is. And of course, that's what he's translating, the repetition of the root word of tzadi dalad kuf, tzedek, ki tzadik yud he vav he, tzedakot alhev. So the repetition of the word rightness. Anyway, go ahead. Let's keep going. I know a lot of people have things to say.
Poster.
So I was struck by the part where it says that the foundation is crumbling, and it made me think about the destruction of the temple, and this idea of the soul maybe flying towards God and trying to get away from the system of a priest being sort of the intercessor for us, and us trying to have a more immediate connection with God. So that's how it struck me.
And you notice he doesn't capitalize the you for God. Fisher doesn't encounter God, I think, in that kind of a way. So that's interesting too.
Karen Brody.
What disturbs me about this is that I see God with the righteous. I mean, we all know that, but who is to be with those who are unrighteous, who are misguided, and who are in trouble? Their behavior is troubling because they're in trouble. And if God turns away from them, then who is to be with them?
That's a pretty big question.
Wow. Lori Croatman.
I think, and in the original too, I was so struck by the gaze and the eyes, and I think of the Sphinx, I think of the all-knowing, and mostly, like, if you do something rotten, it's known, it's seen in your own soul, it's seen inside, it doesn't go unnoticed, and your punishment, it comes from within. That's how I saw it, and that's how I read everything from Fisher. So that was my interpretation.
Beautiful. Let's take a couple more, because I do want to look at Bernstein before today ends. Let's take a couple more of these, and I think...
Sorry, Dean Dresser.
Well, I was struck was in the line when he says, you are your holy temple reclining your heavenly throne, yet your eyes still sees us, your gaze still proves us. That's right after what is right and the foundations are crumbling. So I think that he's turning us inward, and I know you prove the upright, so it's about gaining inner strength in a time when it is chaos for me. And I thought he did a good job of articulating that there aren't these easy redemption cures, where it all gets better.
Do you want to go to Bernstein now, or do you want to stay with a few more comments?
Yeah, let's go to Bernstein now, and then those who have your hands up, let's see if you'll respond also. So Bernstein, remember, is coming from an Orthodox Jewish, but a contemporary, very contemporary perspective. So let's look at 11 as she encounters 11. And again, she's doing exactly what I've said to all of you. She sits down and she says, if I were to put this psalm in my own words and it would be meaningful to me, what would it sound like? Again, Bernstein does not leaves the superscription behind. She doesn't strictly go by verses, although she has some structure to it. But she just says, what does this psalm mean to me? Okay, another English reader today. And let's see.
Ira has been asked to read in English.
Okay, good.
In God I trust. Don't tell me to take wing and fly away to safety. What safety when arrows can pierce my heart in flight? In God I trust to smash the evil missiles aimed at me and mine under cover of night. In God I trust. I trust in God wherever he sits in celestial glory, infinitely distant, infinitely intimate, to know my thoughts, to hear my pulse race. I trust you, God, to rescue me. Demolish all who seek to harm, rain sulfur on them, hellfire storms. I trust you, God, to notice me, to know my love, to keep me safe.
Wow. Okay, so this is, so notice first of all, structurally, no superscription, no laminate sayach, no le David. All of the stuff that we have seen, she eliminates. So let's have some comments. If those who have their hand up for the previous one, what do you see in this? How do you respond? Thoughts about this one?
Barbara Grindell.
Okay. I really had a thought about the other one. So,
okay, go ahead. You can say whatever is on your mind now. That's
okay, good. So on the fourth stanza that people have said, but I'm thinking of it a little differently. So God's in his heavenly holy temple. It's sacred. It's far away because he's reclining in his heavenly throne. So you think he's not watching. He doesn't know what's going on. And yet his eyes still see us. Your gaze still proves us. And Saul mentioned that word proves. And I think he's saying that even though he's reclining, he's still able to see us, and that we are holy, we're in God's image, and it's important to be seen. So.
Gail Winter.
Right, thank you for that. Okay, let's try and, that was, and I agree, that's a very, the contrast in that is very interesting.
Right, exactly.
Any Bernstein comments now?
Sherry, is your comment on Bernstein?
Yeah. And I'm sort of piggybacking with Simon. I just wanted this concept of the foundation stone smashing, the everything that's bad that's happening, juxtaposed immediately. In the last one, it was the third stanza is crumbling, and the fourth stanza is God is, no matter what, God is there proving us, testing us. And here it's in God I trust, wherever God sits.
Yeah.
Wherever, infinite, to know my thoughts, to hear my pulse race. And then at the end, so what you were saying, Rabbi, about at the end, God is there and keeping us safe. It's also permanent, that structure where God sits. And it's always there. So the arc of the poem, in both in the original, in picture, and here, there's that crux of strength of God sitting and watching over us that we end with as well.
And I would say,
can I just ask, where are people getting to the I see to see my eyelids quiver,
right?
But other people read a different line.
Managing for sobriety.
I think that there is, first of all, someone is unmuted. If you've unmuted yourself to speak, please make sure you mute yourself back. I'm hearing someone. Rabbi, there seem to be 2 editions of the book, because Ira and some other people are having something other than see my eyelids quiver.
Yes, that's fascinating.
To hear my pulse race. So there are two variant readings here. We have to have
so clearly she did a edit. Mine is from 2013. So I wonder if she re-edited her book. Is that so interesting?
Okay, ours is from 2013, but I'm sorry, we also don't have eyelids.
That is so interesting. Anyway, see that? There's a scribal difference.
Which one is it, Rabbi? We have to make notes.
So mine says eyelids. I think we need to both write into the different variants so that we have. What's the other one besides to see my eyelids quiver?
Infinitely intimate, to know my thoughts, to hear my pulse race.
To hear my pulse race.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the infinitely distant, infinitely intimate really is the crux of this whole psalm, as she has put it, because it describes her relationship so beautifully and the solution to the problem that the psalm, the psalmist finds him or herself in.
Yeah.
And I just love that phrase, intimately distant,
Yes.
infinitely intimate at the same time.
At the same time. That is really beautiful.
Well, we can look to Septuagint and see which one they translate. No, actually, perhaps we can contact her and see what happens.
Yeah, I know. Well, we will after all of the holidays are over. I'm going to contact her about coming to the class. But let's keep going with comments.
Michael Goldstein has had his hand up for quite a while now.
Thank you. I'm going to do some of the, what is this, Fisher, and then loop it into the Bernstein.
Okay.
In Fisher, the first stanza and the last stanza mean a lot to me. First stanza, I have trusted in you. How can you say to my soul, take flight like a mountain bird? To me, he's saying, take flight like a bird and be free above everything. And then in the last phrase, it says, for you are where rightness is your loving kindness, your face glows with it. In other words, he's confirming that you can be above it, but that rightness is your loving kindness. Now, moving on to the Bernstein, it's every single verse is in God I trust, in God I trust, in God I trust, and you trust, I trust you, God, I trust you, God. This is a confirmation of what's going on in the other version. In other words, yes, take flight like a bird, be above all that's going on in all those other verses, but I trust in you, God. And remember, for me, it's not God, G-O-D, it's good, G-O-O-D. So it's always doing the good is the way to go. That's what
Beautiful. That's great that you noticed her structure there. It's very interesting what she does there. There are five, she has five, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 verses. And the first two are in God I trust. The middle one is in God with this extra space, I trust. And then I trust in God. And then the last two verses are I trust you, God. So you see there's definite structure there. That's interesting to note. Good. Who's next? On Bernstein.
Well, I noticed two things. First of all, Bernstein to me is always the one that touches me, the one that is the most profound. One, because it's the simplest. She writes the fewest words, but they're the most profound to me. But the end, when she says, I trust you, God, to notice me, to know my love, to keep me safe. The first thing I noticed is that it almost has a sense of, I trust you, God, even if you don't trust yourself. Even if you're not proving to me that you are going to be there for me, I trust that you will be there for me. And for me, especially during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, to me, it's almost like every day that you get up is another proof that God is there, that God is giving you another opportunity to be written in the book of life. So when she says, I trust you, God, to notice me, it's almost as if she's saying, even if you don't notice me, I know that you notice me. And when she says to know my love and to keep me safe, it seems like the simplest prayer of every prayer, which is just notice me and protect me. So I find it really profound.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Rabbi, I'm looking at the time, and I think that if we want to hear Kentonimi again.
Definitely. And I think on Wednesday we'll begin with the personal if people are writing, because I think tomorrow we'll conclude. Maybe Wednesday, depending on the comments.
And so I'm going to send out an email there are a lot of new people as to how to submit something, and we'll certainly have enough to start on Wednesday. There's a question, Monday is Indigenous Peoples Day and the office is closed. Are we going to be off on Monday?
So we're going to be off because when the office is closed, we can't get support. So we'll be closed.
Okay, and Katrinimi, before you started, you just had a little BDB that you note that you shared with us. If you might want to share that again.
Oh yes, I found the roots for drink and.
Oh yes, tell us.
So it's very clear that the root Shin Tav He is about drinking specifically. It was a little bit confusing to me where it also listed it under a Shin Tav He heading, but then it said below that the root could also be thought of as Shin Tav by itself or Shin Yud Tav for feet or foundation. And that Sheit in Hebrew can actually mean one's personal seat, as in one's posterior.
Interesting. Fascinating. Well, thanks to BDB. Wonderful resource.
We'll go back to Cantor, and I will say I see Sheldon, Ira, and Linda. You don't have to keep your hands up all night, but tomorrow morning we'll start again here. All right. share screen and Jacob Nemi's beautiful new offering.
And folks, remember, if you're tonight, we have a members town hall at 6 o'clock. If you registered, you'll get the link. If you haven't registered,
It's not too late.
not too late.
Yes, our voting experts are going to talk about making a voting plan and working on elections outside of New York from a nonpartisan standpoint. We have a special guest. I believe that Randy Weingarten will be
Yes.
calling in from the road.
No, she's in New York right now. She's on her, while the bus is driving to Kansas, she comes back.
Tell us about her
Let me feel-
experience on us. We will have breakout groups. It will be terrific, and it is vital for everyone. So if you're not already registered, there's information on the website as to how to get registered. All
Or
right.
write to info@cbst.org if you really need to write, don't need the info.
Okay, here we go.
On my screen, it somehow went black, but maybe it's just me.
No,
black
oh,
on mine
that's
too.
You, it's me. It's not you, it's me, really. How's that?
Much better.
Good.
What can we do when the world is a wilderness and no one can show us the way? When everything's shifting, the air filled with bitterness, does anyone know what to say? When even the very foundations are crumbling, a chasm between me and you. When even the righteous can't keep from stumbling, does anyone know what to do? Ki ashatot yeharesu Tzadik mapa'al Ki ashatot yeharesu Tzadik mapa'al Ki hashatot yeharesu Tzadik mapa'al.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Cantor Nemi. Thank you, everybody. I believe Harold has sent you all these translations and settings, so please look at them, lay them out on your kitchen table, and get to know the psalm better and better and better, and we'll continue tomorrow. Have a good day. I'll see everybody tonight at 6 o'clock.
See you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Mishpachah dinner at 5 o'clock.
Correct.
For those
Mishpachah
other
dinner at
people,
5 o'clock.
Please come. It's a great
Harold,
group.
I didn't get
Join
them.
us.
Coming. Harold, I didn't get them again.
I'll send it to you, Linda.
Right. Linda, thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, come on, look at that long, stop it. Alexa, stop. Okay, wait. Hello, 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 hello. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mother